This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Now, last week I did a video where I was talking about 5 of my favourite recorded Stratocaster tones. And I thought it would be only fitting as a follow-up to do this week, a similar video on the Les Paul. So here are 5 of my favourite Les Paul tones that have made it to record over the years. Now, whenever you're talking about, iconic or great Les Paul tones, there's always, certain tones that overshadow everything else. I'm thinking maybe of Clapton's Beano era tone, or, the Peter Green Les Paul tone, or maybe, if you're like me, a fan of Gary Moore, then you got to kind of start thinking about his Still Got the Blues era guitar tone. Those examples and a few others, just as I say, overshadow everything else, and I don't really feel I'm adding anything to the discussion by banging on about those, so I'm not going to. What I'm going to do today is talk about 5 less obvious but equally brilliant examples of the recorded tone of a Gibson Les Paul, starting with
Andy Latimer, the Snow Goose.
Yes, now I'm a huge fan of Camel, and this album, The Snow Goose, and the title track in particular, is just a beautiful piece of music, whichever way you stack it up. If you're not familiar with it, then I shall link to the track down in the description, and I hope that when you listen to it, you will agree with me that it is just a fantastic example of what a Les Paul can sound like. It's warm, it's fat, it's lyrical, it's sensitive, and, it still has, despite all of the kind of ideas of a Les Paul being this big kind of guitar tone, there's still a clarity to it that, sits beautifully in the mix. I'm not sure what he's plugged into here. I might be wrong, but maybe he's plugged into an AC30, I'm not sure. But it's a beautiful guitar tone, and it goes a long way for me to make up the whole package of that piece of music. You could have the most fantastically gorgeous melody on earth, but if it's played by, a comb and paper or a kazoo, then it lacks something. You need the actual timbre of the, or timbre, however it's pronounced, of the instrument to kind of contribute to the overall expressiveness of the music, and that certainly happens here. Andy Latimer's tone on the title track from the Snow Goose album by Camel. Fantastic Les Paul tone, and that's why it's on this list. Next,
Dickie Betts, Stormy Monday.
Yes, now the Allman Brothers at the Fillmore is one of my favourite live albums, and there's another one of my favourite live albums later on in this list as well, actually. See if you can guess what it is before we get there. Dickie Betts' tone on, across the whole album, but on, Stormy Monday especially, is just absolutely gorgeous. He's got this kind of dirty but clean, stroke clean but dirty kind of vibe going on, and there's a clarity to it and an expressiveness that you get the feeling that he's not really conscious he's playing an instrument. He's just feeling or thinking or hearing the music in his head, and it's coming out through his fingers via this beautiful guitar tone. You can tell when you listen to it carefully that he's doing that thing that many great guitar players do, which is to, kind of ride the volume control on the guitar to dial in just the perfect amount of dirt and sustain for whatever lick or note he happens to be expressing at the time. It's a beautiful guitar tone. For me, it's one of those kind of benchmarks that I use in my head for when I'm listening to a Les Paul. Is it as good as Dickie Betts' tone on that Allman Brothers live album? And as I say, that's one of the yardsticks that I measure things against. Fantastic example of what a Gibson Les Paul can sound like in the right hands, and that's why it's on this list. Next,
David Gilmour, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2.
Indeed. Now, this might surprise some people. It surprised me when I first found out that David Gilmour wasn't playing a Strat on the solo from Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, I have you know. It's weird because I listened to that solo for years and years and thinking, yep, that's just an iconic Stratocaster tone. It isn't. He plays that solo on a P90 equipped Gibson Les Paul Gold Top, and it's, again, words that seem to keep cropping up as I'm kind of talking about these things are lyrical and clarity and, purity of tone and expressiveness, and all of those apply to this particular sound here. I think I remember reading an interview with Mr. Gilmour where he talked about he wasn't even amped up for this solo. It was just the P90 Les Paul on the neck pickup going straight into the desk, and I don't know what's going on with that, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful, warm, clear, crisp but fat lead tone, and again, a fantastic example of what a Les Paul can sound like when it's been played by the right person. So that's why this one's on the list. It's not a Strat, it's a P90 Les Paul. Next,
Peter Frampton, Do You Feel Like We Do?
Yes, indeed. I mentioned that there was going to be another one of my favourite ever live albums on this list, and well, if you're thinking about classic live albums that feature a Les Paul, then you've got to arrive at Frampton Comes Alive before, without too much thought, don't you? It's a fantastic album, and I could have picked any of the tracks off this. But, Do You Feel Like We Do? I mean, it's a bit of an epic, what was it, about 9 minutes long song, and there are multiple solos in there where, he plays with the, I think he plays with the talk box on this, and, there's a Leslie effect on it, in parts of it. But whatever effects he puts on, there's a Binson tape echo on there as well. Whatever effects he puts on, you can hear that it's a Les Paul. It's got that that fatness, that sustaining kind of warmth to it that a Les Paul is famous for. And of course, this was on his famous 3 pickup Les Paul, that's which is an entire other story. Just, you can go and do a bit of research on that. There's plenty of YouTube videos about it that explain the history of that guitar. A fantastic guitar tone that, once again, expressiveness, clarity, warmth, purity of tone, all of these phrases that I've used throughout this little video all kind of spring to mind when we think about Frampton's tone across that whole album, and this track in particular. A fantastic example of what a Gibson Les Paul can sound like, and once again, that's why it's on the list. Next,
Tom Scholz, More Than a Feeling.
Yeah, again, a unique guitar tone. There, you wouldn't really think that the tone that you hear on More Than a Feeling is essentially the same guitar as the tone you hear on, well, I don't know, Statesboro Blues or Stormy Monday, but it is. It's a Les Paul, and Tom has a unique guitar tone. There's no one else has the Tom Scholz guitar sound. Well, probably plenty of people do now, because look at how many Rockman guitar effects kind of units he shifted in his time. That little box of tricks that gave you that Tom Scholz guitar tone. But what I'm talking about is, in 1976 or whenever that first album came out, there was nobody playing a Les Paul that had that particular sound. But it's still identifiably a Les Paul. It's still got that, again, let's run down the checklist of phrases I've used, that fatness, that clarity, that sustain, that girth, that expressiveness that comes from Gibson's finest. It's a fantastic, performance, that whole song. I don't know if you've seen Rick Beato's video where he pulls the song apart, but it's well worth hunting down, where you hear all the tracks soloed and everything. Fantastic, beautiful beautifully put together track. I did the one of these Why I Love This Album videos about that Boston album a little while ago, and you know, it's just a large part of the reason why I love that whole album, and you know, More Than a Feeling as a kind of lead off track for it in particular is just because of Tom Scholz's utterly superb Gibson Les Paul tone, which is again why it is on this list of fantastic Les Paul tones. So there you go, folks. There are 5 of my favourite Gibson Les Paul tones. Once again, let me know what your 5 favourite or 5 of your favourites, and if you want to include a little line or two about you know, what it is that means this tone or that tone makes it onto your list, then feel free. Leave your comments down below as you usually do. And that is pretty much it for today, folks. I do hope you've enjoyed the video and found it reasonably entertaining. That is, after all, the point of doing all of this. And if you have, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not give me a like while you're at it? If you want to support the channel, all the links are down in the description. Don't forget the live stream on Friday, 5 PM UK time, where we sit and have a beer and a chat, and probably the topic of great Les Paul tones will be you know, on the agenda this week. But whatever we want to talk about, we end up nattering about. It's a great way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.